Okay, so let's start with the configuration. This is the EC2 dashboard on which we are going to configure this scenario. So let's start. So in this EC2 dashboard, we have created one region, and we have one region. In this region, we don't have any resources provisioned as of now. So first thing, we are going to create one VPC. So let's go to the VPC dashboard. Let's go to the VPC section and hit on create VPC. So now AWS has provided two ways to create a VPC. One is only VPC, another one is VPC and more. In VPC and more section, they will create a subnet for us. They will create the route tables for it and configure the routes for us. So if we create on VPC and more, as you can see, this is the project VPC that will be created. We can change the name of this VPC, and with this VPC we will get two subnets, one public subnet and one private subnet in one availability zone, and one public subnet and another private subnet in another availability zone. So we can select the number of availability zones that we want to use. So here is the option to number of availability zone that we want to use. If we select one, then one availability zone will be removed from here. If we select two, then we will have two availability zone. In our scenario, we need two availability zones. So we will select two availability zones, and we need one public subnet and two private subnets. So here, as we can see, that there are two public subnets created and two private subnets created. So what we will do is we will go with this diagram. We will go with this architecture, and then we will delete one public subnet too from this VPC. So let's give the name of our VPC. So the name of our VPC is AWS AON, AWS Always On. Okay, VPC. AWS Always On VPC. Actually, VPC is already been tagged, so let's remove that and let's create AWS Always On VPC. And then there are two subnets created, four subnets created actually, two public and two private in two availability zones. So AWS AON subnet public 1, subnet private 1, subnet public 2, and subnet private 2. And these are the route tables created through which these subnets will interact with each other. And we have one IGW that is connected with our public subnet, and we will have one VPC S3 gateway, but we don't need this, so we can remove this from the option. We don't need a gateway as of now, VPC endpoint, so this is removed. Now let's hit on create VPC. So once we click on create VPC, AWS will run the automation at the background, and these all things will be configured for us. So let's go on view VPC section, and let's see if our VPC is ready. We have one VPC ready, and the name of the VPC is AWS AON VPC. And let's go to the subnet. Then we have total 4 subnets, 2 public and 2 private. So we don't need this public subnet, so let's delete this public subnet. We can go over here and delete. Let's write over here delete and click delete. So this public subnet will be deleted. Now we have one public subnet and 2 private subnets. And as we have mentioned, so these all things are configured. We have created one VPC. We have 2 availability zones now. As you can see over here, we have 2 availability zones. One availability zone is EU North 1A, another availability zone is EU North 1B. And we have 2 subnets, one public subnet in EU North 1A and private subnets are in EU North 1A and 1B. This is what we can see in the diagram. This is one private subnet and this is another private subnet. We have one public subnet. So this has been configured. So now let's go to the EC2 section and start creating our resources. So once we start creating our resources, these are the things we need. So we need one jump box, we need one AD server, we need one SQL server on EC2 and 2 SQL servers on EC2. So let's start.